Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the craziest scams in chess history. Chess scams? You mean like those hustlers that play chess in New York? Unfortunately, no. We're actually dealing with some real big-time fraudsters here. Like, I'm talking 5 figures all the way up to 8. Now, I know that may be hard to believe. Okay, white-collar crime in chess? That's impossible. But as it turns out, some chess players don't just promote their pawns, they also promote Ponzi schemes. That's not a joke.
Chat, Do Kwon was listed as one of the top 20 most influential people in crypto.
A few moments later.
An arrest warrant was just issued for Do Kwon, the founder of Terra Luna, a $40 billion cryptocurrency that collapsed to almost zero earlier this year.
For a game with a reputation of being highly sophisticated and a symbol for intelligence, you'd be surprised with the kinds of stories that arise from its community. Of course, this was simply an example of the classic paid influencer promotion gone wrong. Alex wasn't personally involved in operating the scheme, but not every case is like this. And as we'll soon see, sometimes it's the chess influencer themselves who's the one moving the pieces. So in today's episode of Grifting the Chess Community, we'll be taking a look at 3 of the most iconic scams in chess history. A pretty cool novelty in the chess world is the automatic chessboard. That is, a chessboard that can move the pieces by itself. This right here is the Grand Kingdom set made by Squareoff back in 2018, which used a mechanical arm inside the board to move the pieces. It even had online functionality, allowing you to play chess online with a physical chessboard. Unfortunately, the board wasn't without its downsides. It's rather bulky for a chessboard, being about 2 inches thick, and having a single arm meant it could only move one piece at a time.
The board itself is making a lot of noise, so let me just make a move here. Whenever let's see, that's the castle. Knock one over.
So while very impressive, it certainly had plenty of room for improvement, and showed that developing an automatic chessboard was no easy task. Enter Angel Delgado, a Mensa member engineer, and the chief technology officer for Regium, the automatic chessboard that was going to revolutionize the future of chess. Rather than a mechanical arm, the board used a grid of electromagnets to move the pieces, making it thinner, faster, and quieter than Squareoff. This also allowed for multiple pieces to be moved at once, letting the user quickly set up whatever position they wanted. And, just like Squareoff, the Regium board had full online functionality. On December 17th, 2019, Regium released a promotional video where they showcased the full power of the Regium chessboard. It starts off with the camera panning around the board as the pieces move about freely with the fucking Harry Potter music playing in the background. Then the Mensa engineer guy plays a game against his friend Frank, who is somewhere else, and once again the pieces move automatically in response to Delgado's moves. After that, there's a little segment showcasing all the different features and functions of the board. Then they just decided to cut to some random B-roll footage of the 2012 World Blitz Championships. For some reason. As if it has literally anything at all to do with Regium. And of course, we can't forget the buzzword salad at the very end. Some of these are just flat out redundant, misspelled, or completely nonsensical. At this rate, I'd expect reflex projectiles to be a core feature of the board. Anyways, Regium's little presentation video appeared to be a massive success, as they prepared to launch a Kickstarter campaign on February 25th, 2020. In the meantime, they would go on to sponsor several major online chess events, such as Chess24's Banter Blitz Cup, giving them the perfect excuse to parade the Magnus cosign around on their website, as well as Chess.com's 2019 Speed Chess Championships, meaning they were now officially endorsed by 2 of the 3 largest online chess websites in the world.
The Speed Chess Championship final brought to you by Regium. It is like magic. That's the only way to describe it. It's not science, it's magic.
It's not science, it's magic. Movie magic, that is. The board showcase was fake. How do we know this? Well, pay attention to this night. I'm gonna highlight it for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. Now when we fast forward to when Frank plays bishop b4, you'll notice that something went a little wrong in the animation department, as if they enhanced more than just the sound. Personally, I have absolutely no clue how people were able to notice a discrepancy like this, but nevertheless, this discovery raised some serious questions, and people started to discuss the situation on the Lichess forums. This prompted Regium to send a very stern email on February 2nd, 2020, threatening Lichess with a lawsuit if they didn't censor the discourse. So, later that same month, Lichess replied by posting an official thread discussing the many red flags surrounding the project. Chess.com would also release their own thread discussing the situation, and Chess24 would follow suit, stating that they were terminating their sponsorship with Regium and contacting Kickstarter to express their concerns. Most importantly, all three websites implored Regium to do a live, in-person demonstration to prove the legitimacy of the product and dispel all their doubts. And of course, as you could probably guess, Regium refused to oblige. Granted, you'd think Chess.com and Chess24 would have done their due diligence before signing on to do the sponsorship, but I digress. As the fire continued to burn, Regium's little plan began to rapidly fall apart day by day. And yet, even after everything that transpired, when the Kickstarter finally went live, they still managed to raise tens of thousands of dollars on their first day of fundraising. While some of the backers would eventually pull out over the next few days, it just goes to show how there were still people who believed in the product. If Regium had just stayed silent instead of hastily emailing Lichess with bogus legal threats, they might have gotten away with it all. Unfortunately for them, they didn't, and on March 2nd, Kickstarter suspended the campaign and refunded all the money, officially putting an end to Regium's scheme. What I found most interesting about Regium is that the technology for a board like this does technically exist, so I would have been more inclined to believe that this was a fake it till you make it situation, had they not tried faking it so hard.
It's absolutely amazing. Stunning.
Chess Lover! Now that's a real title right there. Gukesh may have won the world championship, but is he truly a CL? I didn't think so.
Simply awesome. And I love the design.
Ah, yes. Nothing quite like that Regium exclusive 8x8 grid, because as we all know, there are literally no other chessboards with a design like this. You know, these boards were actually manufactured by a company called
Rechapados Ferrer.
But when asked if they had any involvement, a representative from the company stated that they never collaborated with Regium, nor have they modified any of their boards to have the features displayed in the video.
Wow, I never imagined I'd see something quite like this. It's amazing.
How did anyone fall for this? And what's even crazier is that if you went on the Regium website, they showed some of their personnel, and even this part of the company was fake. 4 out of the 6 people pictured were AI generated using a website called, and I kid you not, thispersondoesnotexist.com. As for the other two, Angel Delgado was that Mensa guy from the showcase video, and the only other real person claimed he had no connection whatsoever to Regium. I'm also just gonna assume that Frank from the showcase video
I'm playing right now with my friend Frank, but he's not here.
also doesn't exist because, like, why would he? Square off, that other automatic chessboard has real people featured on their website with links to their reviews. Granted, it also helps that their products, actually exist and work, but that's beside the point. Basically, the entire Regium operation from top to bottom was just a complete scam. But what I found most interesting is just how quickly some of the largest entities in chess were ready to sing Regium's praise without doing any due diligence beforehand. And while they did eventually and aggressively caution their users against supporting the board, it's still pretty eye-opening how these large companies were willing to ignore every red flag just to get a bag. So this next case is weird because while it technically isn't a scam, and therefore should fall outside the scope of this video, it's still kinda scam adjacent, and the situation as a whole is just so incredibly funny that I couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about it. In December 2022, the World Poker Tour was holding a $15 million World Championship in Las Vegas, and they had a pretty interesting marketing strategy leading up to the event. They invited big poker influencers to play in satellite tournaments, and the winners were awarded free seats to the championship, which they would then give away to their audiences. One of these influencers was the chess streamer and alleged woman grandmaster Nemo, who won a seat for the WPT World Championship worth $12.4 thousand.
Oh my god, I got the ticket!
And surely enough, on November 30th, Nemo announced that she was giving away her seat. She released a YouTube video containing a secret code phrase, and the first 10 comments to use the code phrase would be eligible to win. She would select the winner based on comment creativity and ability to use the seat. It was a fairly simple contest with a low barrier of entry. So when Nemo announced that she was choosing her poker coach and boyfriend Thallo as the winner, everyone began to ask questions. When people went back to look for Thallo's entry, they found that he left his comment immediately when the video dropped, and then edited it after he found the code phrase to essentially guarantee his spot in the first 10. Also, for a contest where the winner was supposedly picked based on creativity, Thallo's comment sucked. I'll make this as easy as your mom? Seriously? But what's most suspicious about his comment is that he planned to donate half of all winnings to a local charity or animal shelter. While this sounds like a nice gesture, this was a complete lie. On November 27th, a few days before Nemo even announced her giveaway, Thallo was seen in a Discord server trying to sell an extra WPT seat he had. Well that's interesting. Where did he get an extra seat from? You can probably already guess where this is going. In the midst of all the backlash, Thallo was confronted on this exact issue, and he responded by saying that Nemo wanted to give him her seat as a thank you gift, but WPT told her that she should instead do a public giveaway like all the other influencers. So she came up with the brilliant idea to do a fake giveaway to essentially launder the seat to Thallo. Personally, I think this plan was a stroke of genius. Really, the only flaw with the plan is that it was incredibly fucking obvious what they were trying to do, and consequently they immediately got called out for running a rigged giveaway. And in response to all the backlash, Nemo gave what is hands down the greatest Notes app statement of all time. For someone who claims poker teaches important life lessons, it seems as though respecting others wasn't one of them. Apparently this needs to be addressed, so I'm only gonna comment on it once and move on, as Twitter is already far too draining on my mental health to give all of this toxicity any more energy. I see a lot of you talking about my choice to give something I won to someone I know and who's helped me rather than you, your friend, or your best written sob story. Yes, I chose to give the package to the person I felt was most deserving. I would never have won the package without Thallo in the first place. He's helped me on every step of my poker journey, not to mention coach me through that entire tournament as well, and he met the qualifications for the giveaway. Apparently that means it was rigged or a scam to some of you. I don't feel that way. I was only fortunate enough to win one giveaway, didn't have an opportunity to come up with a better way of doing it, and frankly, am not going to feel bad about giving it to the person I think deserves it most. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything as cool as Joey, Amanda, or whoever else. My community aren't poker players, and I didn't have time to organize some elaborate giveaway. I work 15 hours a day as is. If anyone who's upset about this thinks deserves should be based on someone's net worth, age, or whatever other personal reasons, then feel free to do your own giveaways with your own money on your own time. I won't be addressing this again. She seems great. In this statement, she denied any wrongdoing, aggressively antagonized her own fans, gave really shitty excuses that didn't matter whatsoever, and even admitted to receiving coaching during the satellite tournament, which I'm pretty sure is cheating. What's even more interesting is that initially when she announced the giveaway, she said she was picking the winner based partially on their ability to use the seat. Not only does Thallo have money, as shown by the fact that he's played in tournaments with even higher buy-ins, but remember, he already had a seat. What does he need another one for? Obviously, the statement didn't go over well with pretty much anyone, so almost immediately after posting it, Nemo would delete it and post a new statement where she apologized for giving Thallo the seat and decided to redo the giveaway without Thallo's inclusion. Now when it comes to assigning culpability in the situation, this is where things get complicated in my opinion. At the end of the day, it's not like Nemo did this out of greed. In fact, she wanted to do something thoughtful for her boyfriend, but while she didn't really stand to gain much from the situation, she still benefited from the engagement farming that comes with doing the giveaway, and in the process of faking the giveaway, she insulted the intelligence of her audience, the poker community as a whole, and WPT Global who gave her the seat in the first place, and this is why her original statement was so absurd. It's not like she made an honest mistake, she got caught doing something she was told not to. But that's honestly the extent of it, because while Nemo was the one who hosted the fake giveaway in the first place, I honestly don't know if Nemo is the biggest villain in the situation. Thallo, on the other hand, has no excuse because he was the intended beneficiary. Posting this statement, acting all nonchalant as if he was just along for the ride and not someone who actively participated in the plan and stood to gain the most, is just baffling. He 100% knew that if he entered the contest, he was guaranteed to win. He was so confident, in fact, that he was trying to sell Nemo's seat days before she even announced the giveaway. Then when the contest began, he purposely gamed the system to ensure his entry. You can't do all of that and then try to play dumb when it backfires. So while Nemo deservedly got loads of backlash for the situation, I honestly think that Thalo was just as, if not more, guilty than Nemo. I will say that looking back, some of these tweets are really funny in hindsight. Outside of this situation, there are allegations that Nemo bought her title by playing in special closed tournaments in Eastern Europe where they fix matches. Personally, while I do think there is some very compelling evidence, all of the games in question happened when she was only like 15 years old. So even if it were true that they were arranging or rigging games to help her get the norms, it was most likely not her fault. Besides, if she really wanted the ultimate chess player prestige, she would have bought herself a real title, like Chess Lover. Now, while the first two, technically 1.5 scams we've discussed are relatively small in scale, this next case is most certainly not, and legitimately falls into the category of full-blown white-collar crime. If you've paid any attention to chess in the past few years, you may have heard about the Simon Williams pension liberation scheme situation, and had absolutely no clue what that entailed, or how a guy like Simon could ever get caught up in a scandal like that. Not many people in the chess world have provided any sort of formal coverage for the situation, and nobody has done so on YouTube until now. Simon Williams is an English grandmaster who is most known for his publishing company called Ginger GM, which produces instructional chess media such as the famous Name Your Pawns educational series.
I'm friends with quite a lot of Garys, hence why I personally call the G-Pawn Gary.
Unfortunately for our friend Simon, chess doesn't exactly pay the bills, and after becoming a grandmaster in 2008, he needed to find another way to make money so he could continue to pursue a full-time chess career. So he linked up with his friend Gary Quillen, who himself was an international master and even defeated Grandmaster Daniil Dubov during the 2018 Gibraltar Masters. Gary had many years of experience and connections within the business world, and Simon heavily relied upon Gary's advice and expertise to help find his way in that sphere. Unfortunately, this is how he got roped into some boiling hot water. In the UK, a pension scheme is a long-term savings plan for after retirement. You put money into your pension scheme, and then that money gets invested into things like property, infrastructure, bonds, equity shares, etc., so that in the future, you can take the money out and continue to make a decent income post-retirement. Quid pro quo. More like pro-quid growth. That's a terrible joke, oh my god. Now the term pension liberation describes the act of taking money out of your pension before the age of 55. Barring a few very specific exceptions, you are not allowed to do this, and if you do, you face a massive unauthorized payment tax penalty on any money released. You have to wait until after you turn 55 before you can start taking money from your pension. However, many people have tried, and failed, to find a loophole that would allow them to take tax-free money out of their pension early, and it would appear that our good friends Simon and Gary tried to do this. Gary created a company called SKW Investments, and appointed Simon as the sole director, which for those wondering, yes, those are just his initials. SKW Investments would seek out people who needed money and offer them a loan of up to 25% of their pension fund if they transferred their savings into a pension provider called SipChoice and then invested their pension into a company called Imperium, which was run by some of Gary's associates. From there, Imperium made loans to a few companies owned by Gary, who then bought shares in SKW, who then paid out the loan. If you would please consult the graphs. As you can see, by laundering the pension fund through several transactions and shell companies, SKW Investments was effectively able to loan its clients their own pension money without anyone knowing. Including SipChoice. SipChoice wasn't in on the scheme, and everything was being done completely behind their back. In fact, SipChoice had no idea that SKW Investments even existed, and if they ever found out, It would spell the end for the scheme. Near the end of 2010, a man named Mark Bakes was in desperate need of money right before the holidays. After hearing that SKW could unlock his pension, he signed on and requested the pension transfer. However, the transfer took over 2 weeks to complete, and during that time, Mr. Bakes grew very impatient. He started contacting SipChoice daily to ask about his pension, stating, "I need to get this money." And this is where things get interesting. SKW had explicitly told Mr. Bakes to only speak with them about his pension situation. So when they found out that he spoke with SipChoice, a representative immediately called Mr. Bakes, scolded him for speaking with SipChoice, threatened to pull the plug on his loan, and claimed he had jeopardized everything they were doing. He also reassured Mr. Bakes that everything they were doing was legal, but then in the same breath reminded him to refrain from speaking with SipChoice any further. And they were right to be paranoid. Due to their interactions with Mr. Bakes and his wording of "I need to get this money," SipChoice worried that their members were somehow obtaining portions of their pension fund. But since they had no idea that SKW even existed, their investigation was instead pointed at Imperium. And of course, all they discovered was that Imperium was making loans to Gary's companies, not to SipChoice members. This is precisely why the Liberation scheme was designed the way it was. If you look at all the transactions in totality, they form an illegal pension liberation scheme. But if you're like SipChoice and don't have the full picture, each individual transaction looks perfectly legal and normal, so you wouldn't see anything nefarious. It wasn't until SipChoice got an email from a member named Peter Orpwood that SipChoice finally put the pieces together and uncovered the scheme. Mr. Orpwood was dissatisfied with the status of his pension fund and complained that the only reason I transferred my pension from the Ford pension fund was to secure a loan with SKW Loans, who recommended me, and that I had to transfer my pension in order to secure a loan with them. And just like that, the jig was up. SipChoice ceased all business with Imperium and reported this discovery to HMRC. Now by this point, the damage had already been done. In total, Imperium received about £6 million worth of pension funds. That's about 8 million in USD. SipChoice made 98 investments into Imperium, and I think it's safe to assume that SKW paid out a comparable number of loans. And once HMRC was notified of the scheme, these loans were deemed unauthorized payments, and the recipients were forced to pay hefty taxes on the transactions. After this whole scheme was brought to light by the Times newspaper, Simon posted a brief statement addressing the situation on the English Chess forum, stating that his role in SKW Investments was purely administrative and didn't partake in sharing of any profits, instead receiving a very modest salary of £500 to £1,000. Most importantly, he mentions that he heavily relied on the knowledge and expertise of other people such as Gary, and it was this advice that informed his decision-making. Before agreeing to become director, I was presented evidence of advice received from an independent professional tax advisor who issued a formal document demonstrating that the structure was legitimate and, in his professional opinion, would not lead to any tax consequences for the individuals involved. Not being technically minded in this field, I did not seek further clarification. In hindsight, my decision to become involved is regrettable, since HMRC disagreed with some of the technical arguments and decided to apply tax. Surprisingly, neither Simon nor Gary faced any sort of sanction for their involvement in the scheme. But just a few years after the SipChoice incident came to light, it was reported that Simon got roped into another pension liberation scheme. Back in 2013, Simon was appointed the sole director of a company called Focus Administration Pension Scheme, which was also designed by Gary, by the way. Unfortunately, the pension fund completely collapsed in on itself due to extremely questionable investment decisions from Simon, opting to invest in only a handful of already high-risk companies and assets that his business associates conveniently had an economic interest in. This collapse resulted in one member losing nearly half his pension fund and another losing his entire pension. And of course, one of the investments was engineered in a way that allowed one of the members to access their pension money early, aka pension liberation. As a result, Simon was ordered to repay £730,000 into the scheme, which eventually got settled down to £160,000. After this story broke, Gary made a statement of his own, taking responsibility for the situation and attempting to absolve Simon from any blame. He stated that Simon accepted the role on the basis that he could lean on Gary and his associates for advice. However, the advice they gave was inadequate and failed to account for nuances in the law. And while I can certainly appreciate him admitting fault and defending his friend like this, Would you believe me if I told you that this scam wasn't Gary's first rodeo?
Yeah.
That's right, international master Gary Quillen was implicated in yet another pension liberation scheme, this time with a partner in crime named Kevin John Kirkwood. And you'll never guess the name of the company he was the director of. Gary's brother-in-law, Gregory Gerard Garrett, would run a company called G Loans, who offered loans to those who invested their pension funds into KJK, who would then lend money to G Loans, who then... Okay, you guys are smart, I don't have to explain it all again. Just like before, the scheme allowed its members to liberate their pensions using loans and a little bit of layering. But here's what's insane. Over the course of 30 months, KJK Investments received not one, not two, but 12 shillion pounds worth of investments. That's roughly 16 million in USD. And this entire operation was being run by a chess player. In IM! That's the same title as Gotham Chess! About half of that money went to G Loans so they could give out the loans to the members, and just like the other schemes, these loans were deemed unauthorized payments by HMRC, resulting in serious tax penalties for the clients while the scheme directors kept the remaining funds for themselves. This obviously did not go well with the authorities, and after a thorough investigation, the Manchester High Court ruled that KJK misled its investors into participating in a pension liberation scheme. Kevin received a 10-year ban from being a director, while Gary and Greg each got 12-year bans. But what I found the most important and revealing part of this whole operation was what Chief Investigator for the Insolvency Service Alex Dean had to say regarding the case. None of the directors expressed any real regret for deliberately misleading people who were mainly small pension investors and who were targeted because they were unable to get credit and required cash. So to wrap up this entire section, despite being seen as the face of the chess player pension liberation scheme scandal, I don't think it's fair to pin the blame on Simon. While he may have taken the brunt of the guilt when it came to focus, his involvement screams more of an unwitting accomplice rather than the main villain of the story, and it seems as though the people who promised to advise Simon instead chose to take advantage of his lack of knowledge to run their little schemes. Then when the schemes fell apart, Simon took the fall while everyone else got off scot-free. Let's also not forget that Gary, the main guy who roped Simon into this mess in the first place, operated and/or designed most of the important companies involved in these schemes. In regards to the SIP Choice case, he helped create literally every company involved in the scheme besides SIP Choice. He also designed Focus. G Loans was literally run by his brother-in-law. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if KJK Investments was also created by Gary. This might just be my opinion, so feel free to disagree, but it seems as though this was all Gary's fault, and I don't really buy the whole "my advice failed to account for the nuances of the law" excuse. The odds that Gary, with all his years of experience in this exact field mind you, didn't know what he was involved in are incredibly slim. But above all else, I honestly don't think he feels any remorse. So there you have it, some of the craziest scams to come from the chess community, each one completely unique in their execution and varying in their level of severity. I gotta be honest, I had heard of most of these stories before I started researching for this video, and even I had no clue just how deep the rabbit hole could go. But while these cases were insane, none of them could hold a candle to the worst chess scam of them all.
He's not the best player in the world. He's not even a top 5.
FIDE, in terms of providing that infrastructure, has done, an important thing. They also, like Chess.com, don't own chess.
Only Hans benefits from the persecution complex, and only Hans's brand and his company benefits from this idea that there's blackballing or chess mafia.
Just wanted to give you guys a quick teaser for something I got coming down the line. I don't have an exact timetable for when it'll be out, but it is something that I've been working on. My next video should be coming within the next week, give or take, so be on the lookout for that when it drops. Anyways, thanks for watching, hope you guys enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This right here, based. Whatever's happening behind me, completely condone.